Welcome everyone to the FSC Refresher Training Session for Torbram facility. This session is designed to reinforce understanding of FSC principles, our responsibilities under certification, and how they apply to our day-to-day operations at DCM. Let's get started. DCM has proudly maintained FSC certification since December 2007. This long-lasting commitment reflects our dedication to responsible forest management and sustainable sourcing practices. To maintain this certification, we must consistently demonstrate compliance with FSC's rigorous standards and regulations. This includes anything from material sourcing and chain of custody to documentation and traceability. Our compliance is verified through annual audits conducted by a third-party certification body. In our case, this is Preferred by Nature, a globally recognized organization that ensures we meet all FSC requirements. These audits are essential not only for maintaining certification, but also for reinforcing our credibility with clients and stakeholders who value environmental responsibility. What is FSC? FSC, also known as Forest Stewardship Council, is a global non-profit organization that promotes the responsible management of the world's forest. FSC's mission is to ensure that forests are managed in a way that preserves biodiversity, benefits local communities and workers, and sustains economic viability. Now, one of the main key ways FSC achieves this is through annual certifications. They audit and certify forests around the world to ensure they meet strict environmental and social standards. FSC certification is recognized globally and is a trusted mark for consumers and businesses who want to support sustainable forestry. At DCM, our FSC certifications mean we are part of this global effort to protect forests and promote ethical sourcing. What is chain of custody? Well, chain of custody is a critical part of the FSC system. It is how FSC ensures that materials sourced from a responsibly managed forest are tracked and verified throughout the entire supply chain. So this means that from the moment a tree is harvested through processing, manufacturing, and distribution, the material is clearly identified and documented as FSC certified. Chain of custody certification allows companies like DCM to prove the integrity and traceability of FSC standard products. In simple terms, it's how FSC guarantees that the products you receive at the end of the line truly originated from a certified forest. This traceability is essential not only for regulatory compliances, but also for maintaining customer trust and supporting sustainable sourcing. Now, what does the FSC label mean? Also known as FSC trademark logo. Well, the FSC label, often seen as a tree checkmark logo, is more than just a symbol. It's a guarantee of responsible sourcing. So when you see this label on a finished product, it means that every step in the supply chain, from the forest to the final point of sale, has met FSC's chain of custody requirements. This includes sourcing, processing, manufacturing, packaging, and distribution. This label assures customers and stakeholders that the product was made using materials from responsibly managed forest, recycled sources, or controlled wood. It also reflects DCM's commitment to transparency, sustainability, and ethical practices. There are different types of FSC labels, FSC mixed and FSC recycled, and each one communicates specific sourcing details. At DCM, using the FSC label correctly is essential, not just for compliance, but for maintaining the trust of our clients and uploading our certification. FSC certification isn't limited just to wood or paper. It applies to any products made from forest-based materials. So, that being said, what types of products can be FSC certified? Well, the key idea is if it comes from a forest, it can potentially be an FSC certified. Now, some common examples include wood products such as lumber, furniture, and construction materials. Also, it can be paper and packaging, including boxes, labels, and printed materials. Now, FSC also extends to less obvious items, such as natural rubber, used in tires, footwear, and gloves. It can be from textiles made from natural fibers, such as cotton, bamboo, or any type of lyocell used in clothing. And lastly, cork, for wine stoppers and flooring sourced from cork oak trees. Now, these wide range of certified products help consumers and businesses make more sustainable choices across many industries. Now, at DCM, understanding these varieties of FSC certified materials help us ensure we're sourcing responsibly and offering certified options to our clients. FSC offers two main types of labels that you'll commonly see on certified products. One is FSC recycled and two FSC mixed. Now let's start with FSC recycled. FSC recycled means that 100% of the forest-based material used in the products comes from recycled sources. This label ensures that no new trees were harvested for the product, which helps reduce pressure on forest and supports circular resource use. On the other hand, FSC mix indicates that the product is made from a combination of FSC certified material, FSC recycled material, and FSC controlled wood. Controlled wood is not fully certified, but meets strict requirements to avoid unacceptable sources like illegally harvested or high conservation valued forest. So both labels support responsible sourcing, but FSC recycled is the most environmentally preferred, while FSC mix allows more flexibility in sourcing while still maintaining traceability and integrity. Now, understanding these labels helps us ensure we're using and promoting the right materials in our operations and communication. Now, what determines that an order can be tracked with FSC chain of custody? Well, not every order we produce is automatically tracked under FSC chain of custody, but there are specific conditions that require it. 1. An order must be tracked with FSC chain of custody if the customer specifically requests that FSC certified material should be used. Additionally, even if the customer doesn't really request the FSC, if the FSC trademark logo appears in the artwork, then the order must use FSC certified material and be tracked accordingly. Remember, it's also important to note that some FSC orders may not include the logo but still require certified material. However, if the logo is present, it becomes a mandatory requirement to use FSC certified inputs and follow chain of custody procedures. Now, this ensures we remain compliant with FSC labeling rules and maintain the integrity of our certification. Remember, always verify artwork and customer requirements early in the process to determine if FSC tracking is needed. How do I track an item as FSC? When a customer requests that a DCM produced item use FSC certified material, we must ensure the correct FSC type is selected in the system. This is done by populating the FSC type field, either FSC mix or FSC recycled, in the calculation header of the production order in D365. Once selected, this FSC information automatically maps to the batch, ensuring that the order is flagged for FSC chain of custody tracking. Now, this automation is key. It allows the FSC type and DCM's FSC certification number to flow through the customer's packing slip and invoice, fulfilling our chain of custody requirements all the way to the point of sale. These FSC tracked orders are also captured in the D365 FSC audit report, which supports our annual third-party audits and internal compliance reviews. It's very critical to always double-check that the FSC type is selected correctly at the start of the order to avoid any compliance issues later in the process. How do I track FSC orders that are direct mail or kitting? When it comes to direct mail or kitting jobs, the tracking process for FSC is a bit more detailed. These finished goods are typically made up of multiple components, and not all of them may be FSC certified. In these cases, DCM only tracks chain of custody for the specific components that the customer has requested to be produced using FSC certified materials. If DCM independently chooses to use FSC stock for a component due to supply availability or internal preference, but the customer did not request FSC, then chain of custody tracking is not required. Additionally, the finished good itself does not need to be tracked as FSC unless the customer has specifically requested it or the FSC logo is included in the artwork. The key takeaway to this is FSC tracking is customer driven, not automatically applied to all components or finished goods in a kitting or direct mail job. Moreover, when you're dealing with direct mail or kitting jobs, the tracking process depends on how the order is built. If the customer is billed for the entire kit as a single item, rather than for each component individually, then manual chain of custody tracking is required. In this case, we must ensure that the FSC claim is clearly communicated on the customer invoice. To do this, when releasing stock on a manual sales order, go to the sales order line for each FSC certified item and enter the following in the text field. 1. The FSC claim, which can be FSC mix or FSC recycled. 2. DCM's FSC certification number, which is NC-COC-002850. Now, this manual entry ensures that the FSC status of the components is properly documented and that we remain compliant with FSC chain of custody requirements, even when the finished good itself is not tracked as FSC. Remember, always double check that this information is included before finalizing the invoice. When releasing stock for direct mail or kitting orders on a manual sales order, it is important to ensure that FSC chain of custody details are properly reflected on the customer packing slip. To do this, you need to add an FSC external note on the sales order header. This note should clearly itemize each FSC certified component included in the order and must include the following details: item number, quantity, FSC claim, either FSC mix or FSC recycled, and lastly, the FSC DCM certification number, which is NC-COC-002850. Now, this manual step ensures that the customer receives full visibility of the FSC certified components and that we meet our chain of custody documentation requirements. Now, always double check that the external note is complete and accurate before the packing slip is generated and sent. Which FSC claim type do I select on the calculation header? Now, this is very critical because selecting the correct FSC claim type on the calculation header is a key step in ensuring proper chain of custody tracking. This process begins with procurement. They are responsible for specifying whether FSC certified material is required when placing an order with the vendor. Now, this includes identifying whether the material should be FSC mix or FSC recycled. Now, for label orders, if order entry indicates that an FSC label is required, then procurement must clearly communicate which FSC type is to be used. Once that information is confirmed, order entry is responsible for selecting the appropriate FSC type on the calculation header in D365. In cases where an order can be both FSC mix and FSC recycled materials, the rule is to set the lowest FSC claim on the calculation header. So for example, if both types are used, then FSC mix would be selected as it is considered the lower claim compared to FSC recycled. Now, this ensures that the FSC claim on the final product is accurate and compliant with FSC labeling standards. Now, let's walk through where you can locate and select the FSC product code in Microsoft Dynamics 365. First, step 1. Navigate to Released Products and filter by the item number you're working with. Step 2. From there, you go to the Item Calculation section and open the calculation header. Step 3. Under the Miscellaneous tab, you'll find the field where the FSC product code can be selected. Step 4. Alternately, you can also access this from the production order header. Now in Dynamic Print View, navigate to the calculation header from there as well. Remember, it is important that the location of this field has not been changed. What has changed is what's available to select in the drop-down or field options. Make sure the correct FSC code is selected to ensure proper labeling and compliance with chain of custody requirements. When selecting FSC product codes in D365, it's important to choose the correct option based on the type of material and end use. Now, there are two main categories of FSC stock. There is 1 mixed stock and 2 recycled stock. Now, mixed stock can be classified into 3 different categories. It can be FSC Mix P5 for packaging, FSC Mix P7 for envelopes, and FSC Mix P8 for printed materials. On the other hand, for recycled stock, there is FSC Recycled P5 for packaging, there's FSC Recycled P7 for envelopes, and FSC Recycled P8 for printed material. Now the P codes, which is P5, P7, and P8, correspond to specific product categories and help to ensure accurate labeling and reporting. Please note that the envelopes and packaging are newly added options, so it's especially important to select the correct code based on what is being produced. Always double check the product type and category stock before finalizing the selection in the system to maintain compliance with FSC chain of custody requirements. Now this slide shows a screenshot from D365 calculation header where the FSC codes are selected. As you can see, the FSC code is located under the Miscellaneous tab within the calculation header section. This is where you'll choose the appropriate FSC product code, such as FSC Mix P5 for packaging or FSC Recycled P8 for printed materials. This is all based on the job specifications. It's important to ensure the correct code is selected here, as this directly impacts the FSC labeling and compliance of the final product. Remember, the location of this field has not changed, but the available options have been updated to include new categories like envelopes and packaging. Always double check the code before finalizing the production order to avoid mislabeling or audit issues. Now let's dive in a bit deep on what is Torbram's FSC process and procedures that is in place. If you're looking for an overall FSC guidance or corporate level support, your to-go contact is Janice Scales, our DCM Corporate Certificate Manager. She oversees FSC compliance across the organization and can assist with high-level questions or certifications matters. Now at Torbram, we have 4 designated site-level FSC support contacts, each aligned with specific area of operations. We have Phil, who supports the digital production. We have Hala, who covers direct mail and kitting. We have Sonia, who handles forms and labels. And then you have me. I support FSC from a health and safety, environmental, and quality perspective. Now, together we form a comprehensive support network to ensure FSC compliance is maintained across all departments. From an estimating process, what does CX need to know? Well, sales or CX must confirm with the customer if the order requires FSC certified material and whether the FSC trademark logo should be printed. CX is responsible for submitting the RFQ to the appropriate team. This can be with the digital estimating team for digital items or with label or forms order entry for label or forms. CX must use the flag on the job description template or smart form to to indicate that the order is FSC. An item must be tracked as FSC if the customer requests FSC certified material, regardless of whether the FSC logo will be printed. CX must clearly note if the FSC trademark logo is to be printed on the piece. Now, even if the customer does not want the logo printed, the item still needs to be tracked as FSC. Accurate flagging and documentation are essential for compliance and proper order handling. Furthermore, to estimating process on what a CX needs to know, the CX representative must create a sales quote in D365. Once the quote is created, CX sends an email to either the digital estimating team or the forms and labels estimating team. Now, the email must include the quotation number so the estimating team can spec out the quote and provide final pricing for the FSC order. Now, in the subject line, a CX must include the quotation number, customer name, customer number, and indicate whether this is a rush request if applicable. Now, in the body of the email, the CX must include, you can have a copy and paste of the job overview, a statement that mentions FSC paper must be used on order, and the date of the quotation is required, and this clearly specifies if it is in a rush. Furthermore, digital estimating will review the request and build the cost calculation based on the specifications provided in the job description. Now, labels or forms estimating will review the request and forward it to the appropriate estimating team to build the calculation. For labels or form orders, the order entry team will select the FSC type on the calculation header. For digital orders, CX is responsible for selecting the FSC type on the calculation header. Once the quote is completed, digital estimating or forms and labels estimating will respond to the original CX email request. Their reply will confirm that the quote is complete and will highlight any changes to the original request, such as FSC stock not available to meet the required delivery date, or the quote includes outside purchase or outsourcing of production activities. Now, if FSC stock is not available to meet the requested delivery date, procurement must step in. Procurement is responsible for providing alternative options to CX and estimating. CX or estimating will then confirm the alternatives with sales or with the customer. Alternative options may include using non-FSC stock if acceptable to the customer, communicating the timing impact to receive the requested FSC stock, or by offering a substitute FSC stock that may be available sooner. If FSC stock is unavailable, procurement will notify CX via email and request approval to use a substitute non-FSC product. If CX or sales approves the substitution, then they must do the following. The approval email must be attached to the production order. The FSC label must be removed from the hard copy docket. Non-FSC approved must be handwritten on the docket. The bill of materials must be updated to reflect the non-FSC raw material input. Now, if the customer chooses non-FSC stock due to timing issues, then CX must remove the FSC type from the calculation header in the quotation. Now, this is critical. This must be done before confirming the sales order in print ship or before copying to the production order for warehoused items. Once the final quote is prepared, sales or CX will review it and send it to the customer. Customer approval is required before proceeding. Sales or CX must ensure customer has acknowledged the final pricing and changes to the FSC order if it is, for example, stock substitution or delivery impact. Now, this approval must be documented and attached to the production order in D365 for compliance and traceability. Now, what does CX need to validate on repeat orders? So on repeat orders, CX must validate the following. 1. Customer's request for FSC stock still applies and matches the original order. 2. The FSC trademark logo claim on the artwork, if applicable, is still accurate and consistent. And lastly, 3. The FSC type selected on the calculation header is correct and aligns with the customer's current request. Now, if the customer does not specify FSC material on the repeat order, but the previous artwork includes the FSC trademark logo, then CX must reconfirm the FSC requirements with the customer. Based on the customer's response, update the calculation header and internal documentation accordingly to ensure compliance. Next up is pre-press process. What does a CX need to know? So for digital production, digital CX uses the docket bag to prepare jobs. CX must add the yellow FSC production sticker to the docket bag to indicate FSC requirements. Now for forms and labels, order entry is responsible for creating the hard copy docket. They will also add the yellow FSC production sticker to the docket to flag FSC compliance. Now this step ensures that FSC requirements are clearly communicated to the production team during pre-press. Now, when it comes down to pre-press process, specifically the FSC logo and approval handling, CX must clearly indicate in the job description on the docket whether the FSC order is either requires the FSC trademark logo to be printed or does not require the logo. Now, once the order is flipped to live, pre-press will then see the note from CX, send the FSC approval certificate for new orders or change repeats. This is basically orders with artwork or spec changes. Now for exact repeat orders, the previous FSC logo approval is reused and accompanies with the new order. Now if the existing approval is older than 2 years, a new logo approval must be obtained. Pre-press will then save the copy of the FSC approval in the digital print folder along with the PDF. What FSC documents does CX attach to the production order? Now, CX is responsible for attaching the following FSC-related documents to the production order. First document up is the packing slip from supplier. Now, this is required if the order uses custom FSC stock and confirms the FSC certified material source. Second document is the final approved artwork. Now, this is required if the FSC trademark logo will be printed and ensures the correct logo version and placements are used. The last piece of document would be the FSC logo approval from Preferred by Nature. Now, this is provided by pre-press to CX. This must be attached to the order to confirm trademark compliance. Now, these documents ensure full traceability and compliance with FSC certification requirements. Let's dive a little bit deeper on the FSC note attachments, specifically the trade tab stock details. Now this is where the FSC note attachment is required when stock is pulled in the trade tab on the production order. CX must ensure the following details are included in the note. 1 is a stock ordered in trade. This is where you must clearly indicate what the stock was ordered through the trade tab. Second is a supplier name. Identify the supplier providing the FSC certified material. 3 is a paper name. Specify the exact name of the paper stock used. 4 is the quantity ordered. You must include the total quantity of FSC stock ordered for the job. Now, this documentation supports the FSC traceability and compliance for custom and non-inventory stock. Now let's talk about moving FSC material to production. CX is responsible for initiating the movement of FSC material from the warehouse to production. This is done by completing a WIP release for FSC printed stock or FSC customer supplied material. Now CX must use the WIP release request form, which includes D365 item number, bin location, location to move material to, batch number, and quantity to move. CX must ensure the correct FSC material is requested for movement. If the material is already on the RMI shelf, the print operator will pick it directly. Now this is where the print operator will verify the FSC item using the production docket information, and lastly, ensure the material being moved matches the correct FSC item. If there is a discrepancy, the print operator will contact CX to flag the issue. Now we're going to discuss outsourcing production activities. Outsourcing production activities of an FSC order. Certain activities related to FSC orders may be subject to outsourcing agreements. These include 1. Purchase. This is where you're procuring FSC certified materials from an external supplier. 2. Processing. So any external handling or transformation of FSC materials. 3. Storage. So you're holding FSC materials or products at third-party facilities. 4. Labeling. This is where you're applying FSC trademarks or identifiers outside the primary facility. And lastly, 5 is invoicing. This is where billing activities are managed by an external party on behalf of the organization. Now remember, all outsourced activities must comply with FSC certification requirements and be properly documented to maintain chain of custody integrity. Now, before outsourcing production activities for an FSC order, what must a CX do? Well, a CX must confirm that the vendor is FSC certified before any production activities are outsourced. To verify certification, ask the FSC corporate owner to search the supplier database. Confirm that the vendor holds a valid FSC certificate. Now, if the vendor is not FSC certified, the subcontractor agreement must be signed before any work is transitioned to the vendor. Now, once signed, the subcontractor agreement must be attached to the production order as the FSC file, forwarded to the FSC corporate owner for an audit logging. Now, these agreements must be kept on file for a minimum of 5 years to meet the FSC compliance requirements. In this section, I'll walk through real FSC-related production scenarios to highlight how we track and verify FSC compliance across different departments. Now, each scenario includes key details like the production order, item number, reference number, batch number, site, warehouse, quantity, and delivery date. Now let's dive deep into each of the scenarios. Scenario 1, we have for HALA SF for D200651 857. So this specific scenario has the production order, has the item number, quantity number, batch number, and delivery date. Now, why does this scenario matter? Well, this is a single item FSC job produced at Torbram. This scenario demonstrates how we maintain traceability from production through delivery with no external components. It's a textbook example of how FSC jobs should be documented, ideal for internal audits and external certification reviews. Now, the second scenario, again from HALA, is a kitting job with bill of materials. So here in this specific order, you have the production number, but you have item number as well. But the item number is broken down into two. One is for production item number that was produced, and another item number is for purchasing. So we also have the batch number, quantity, and the delivery date. Now, why does this specific scenario have two different item numbers in the notes section? one that was produced and one that was purchased. Well, this scenario shows the complexity of the FSC compliance in kitting operations. It involves both in-house production and purchased components. This job includes a bill of materials. It's a detailed list of all items used in the final product. Now, FSC rule requires that all items in the bill of materials must be FSC certified or controlled. Now, this scenario highlights the importance of verifying supplier certifications and maintaining documentations for each component. Now, let's go into scenario number 3. Fill for coil books. So here we have the standard information already pre-filled. We have the production order, item number, batch number, quantity information, and delivery date. Now, why this job scenario matters is because this job uses pre-printed or re-inventoried stock, which can be a compliance risk if not properly tracked. It includes the FSC certificate and invoice, which ensures that the stock is used from a verifiable FSC certified. Now, it reinforces the need for tight controls on inventory usage and proper linkage to production documentation. Scenario number 4 for Sonia, label job. Here we have the production information, item number, batch number, quantity, and delivery date. Now, this specific scenario has a high volume of FSC job where the risk of non-compliance is amplified due to scale. The conclusion of the chain of custody invoice and FSC certificate is critical. This scenario demonstrates our ability to maintain full traceability and documentation even in a large-scale production, which is very essential for passing the FSC audits. And lastly, we have scenario number 5. This is for Sonia 2-part jobs. So in this scenario, we have the production number, item number, reference number. We have the batch number, quantity, and delivery date. So this job involves external sourcing from a third-party supplier, Vertiv. It is a great example on how we handle supplier-provided FSC documentation, including invoices and certificates. It underscores the importance of verifying third-party claims and ensuring that all documentation is retained and linked to the job for audit purposes. Now let's wrap up the FSC chain of custody tracking. Overall, here are some good practices and questions that we can ask ourselves. When do we track FSC chain of custody? Well, if a customer requests an FSC certified material, DCM must track the chain of custody through the entire production process to the point of sale. Next question, do we track FSC chain of custody if no logo is printed? Well, the answer is yes. Even if the FSC trademark logo is not printed, the chain of custody must be tracked if the customer requests FSC certified material. Another question we can ask ourselves, what if the customer doesn't request FSC, but the artwork has the logo? Well, this is where CX must confirm with the customer whether FSC material should be used. If the logo is part of the artwork, then the certified FSC material must be used and chain of custody must be tracked. If the FSC material is not being used and the logo then must be removed from the artwork with customer approval. Another question we can ask ourselves, where do we validate FSC chain of custody tracking in D365? Well, this is where you need to check the FSC claim type, which can be FSC mix or FSC recycled, is selected on the calculation header of the production order. What documents should I need to show that it's an FSC chain of custody? Well, this is where the FSC type selected on the calculation header maps to the batch will appear on the customer packing slip and customer invoice. And lastly, another question that we need to ask ourselves is what if custom RMI is required for an FSC job? Well, this is actually a CX responsibility. CX must download the packing slip from the purchase order, attach the vendor packing slip to the production order, and overall, this will ensure traceability from the vendor to DCM. Thank you for your time and attention. Your commitment to FSC standards help us maintain integrity, sustainability, and trust in everything we produce. Let's continue working together to support responsible forest management here at DCM.